And welcome, friends, to Syncretism. It's Tuesday, the 18th of December, 3 days away from the big, big day, the birthday of the universe. Celebrations all round. Very exciting, folks. We've arrived. We're here. Kate, you're on the board. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks very much for...
Oh, no, long time no chat. It's been since almost yesterday now.
Yeah, long time these days, isn't it?
Yeah, a great show last night, by the way. Lots of feedback from lots of folks today. So well done.
Yeah, and we've got the best possible guest today, and as I promised yesterday on the show that I would try to get Matt Presti and Robert Otey, and we have them, and I personally think that this will be the best guest we can possibly get on for preparing us in a realistic, scientific way for what's coming. No hocus pocus, no wishful thinking, no, I feel that we may this and we may, I think, I've got an opinion. We're going to be doing a great show based on good natural science, mostly Russellian science. And I did read some beautiful quotes from the great book, The Secret of Light, yesterday. And I'm going to perhaps suggest that we get Robert and Matt to elaborate on some of the beautiful thoughts that we had from yesterday. So without further ado, welcome Robert and Matt. Thanks for joining us.
How you doing, Santos?
Yeah, great.
Hello, Santos.
Yeah, how are you, Robert?
That's Matt.
Matt, sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm doing great.
Yeah,
Robert,
great.
How are you doing?
Great. Just absolutely great. And great to have you.
Well, thanks for having us on. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Yesterday we mentioned quite a little bit about Walter Russell, and I discovered a beautiful, beautiful passage in his book, which I'll get to in a minute, about the self and how we lose the individuality and grow into the universality. And basically, this would be the ascension process, naturally explained, and it would be what we are looking forward to in the next few days, hopefully. So we can talk a bit about that, and any of your own new findings or whatever you wish to talk about too. How's that?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't go wrong when you're dealing with this beautiful, beautiful science. I just love reading Walter Russell because it makes things so simple. When you look at quantum physics and all of these theories, they're all theories, it gets so complicated and convoluted. You can never, ever find your way through that labyrinth, can you?
Well, that's by design.
Yeah.
It's by design, and not only that, it's one of the greatest minds among us. I can't even recall the name, but he said the ultimate secrets of the universe would ultimately be simple. You know, that's how the Creator is. It's a very simple thing. And anything that's overly complex is mired in effect. So why do we need to over complexify things when actually reality is an extremely simple ordeal?
He also said that a mathematician wouldn't find the answers, it would be an artist, you know?
Yeah, that was Sir Oliver Lodge. So
right.
the ultimate secrets of the universe for which science is searching would not come from a scientist, would ultimately come from a inspired poet, painter, musician, or philosopher.
Yeah, absolutely. In the introduction of the book, Secret of Light, he has this beautiful expression in capital letters: the wave, in the wave lies the secret of creation. Wow. Wow. How would you like to elaborate on that, Robert?
That's the truth. And that's what he has is a seamless cosmology. There's no different set of rules for, atoms and galaxies and suns. Everything operates under the same exact rules. And what he's explained in his work is the wave mechanics of creation. And it's a seamless, it's a seamless cosmology. Whereas in academia, it's boxed up. You have a whole different set of rules, the strong and weak nuclear forces to hold the non-nuclear atom together. And, you have a whole different set of rules for astrophysics. So that ought to be a huge red flag for anybody that, that studies this stuff, that, hey, look, where's this line of demarcation that separates the little things from the big things? Yet the big things are composed of the little things. I mean, atoms make up suns and galaxies. So, Russell's work it explains how nature works perfectly.
Yeah, for sure. The beautiful quote that I read yesterday on page 206 from The Secret of Light, I'll just read that, and it will really put you in a mood for pondering. This is so exquisite. He says, man is aware of himself as an individual, but his concept of what constitutes his individuality is vague. His individuality is what he unknowingly interprets his immortal self to be. His self or soul never changes, never appears or disappears. But this individuality constantly changes to forever fit the changing concept of what he interprets his immortal self to be. As every man gradually comes to know the light of his self in him, his individuality changes by the constant uplift toward that increasing awareness of his centering omniscience. As greater awareness of the light of the universal self comes to man, he gradually loses his individuality and becomes more that universal self. When mankind has become fully aware of God in him, the play of man on this planet is finished. His purpose fulfilled, and the individual man ceases to be. Man loses his expression of life in matter to find eternal life in the light. There is no death.
Amazing.
Wow, Matt, you'd be able to elaborate, and I'd love your take on that. And it's just exquisite.
It really is food for the thought, and incredible stuff. Basically, what it speaks to is man losing his individuality, his sense of being separate. In other words, it could be akin to a metaphor of a drop in the ocean becoming aware that it is not a single drop alone and of itself, but yet contains the whole ocean and is a part of every other drop in the ocean. And it's basically the step from individuality, or the outward sensing paradigm of identification through the senses of materialism, into a universalist kind of mindset where everything becomes three-dimensional and the boundaries of individuality disappear with the realization that all things are connected and that all atomic centers run in and through each other from a scientific standpoint, but from a philosophical standpoint, that all man is a shared experience of mind itself, which generates and radiates that mind in this three-dimensional cosmic light cinema in which we live. It's just beautiful, beautiful stuff. It's modern Shakespeare, really, is what Walter is to me. Just incredible modern Shakespeare that explains the universe from the eyes of an illuminate who was alive at a very near time to the rest of us. So it's great stuff. Love it.
Yeah, deliberate to have written him out of history, really. He should certainly be elevated above the likes of Einstein and these types, even though, you know, they had their genius. You can never, you can never diminish his genius, but it was a different kind. It was more sort of from knowledge gained, very very well done. Whereas this is from a knowing, a still knowing, and it's from a higher place. And yet, why was he not elevated above some of these other ones that were still playing around with theories? Walter Russell didn't play around with theories. There's no theories in any of his books. It's all about knowing and how to know.
That is true, and if I may, I'd like to share a quote. It's not actually a quote, but a story from a gentleman who was a friend of Leo Russell around the year 1987. His name was Ben Novick, a prominent securities consultant in California, who was he was well connected with many major American businessmen. He introduced Leo to the famous capitalist Armand Hammer, of all people. And I'm quoting from the book Remembered for Love by J.B. Yount III, which was about a 10-year study of his part into the annals of the archives of all the letters and correspondences that are in the university archives at this time for the University of Science and Philosophy. And basically, what Ben Novick said is that he had known Albert Einstein intimately and confirmed the reports that Leo had often heard, that in Albert Einstein's last year, he had expressed great regret that he had not followed through with his study of Walter Russell's new science. Einstein had been basically one of the first recipients of the Universal One on its private publication in 1926. Mr. Ben Novick told Leo that Einstein had told him personally that even then he intuitively knew that Walter Russell possessed new scientific knowledge that the world so desperately needed. And I think that's a huge admission to the genius that Walter was. When you have a so-called genius, that was Albert Einstein, who basically says that he regretted, that he had not followed through with the study of Walter Russell. And then not to mention, I just recently heard a interview with a presentation with Nassim Harriman, where Nassim, in his own presentation, said Walter Russell was way beyond him. So it's interesting that these gentlemen, got elevated to the status of genius, but yet there's no mention of Walter in our current day cosmologies that are out there floating around. I think that's an important point to consider.
Yeah, let's change that. Let's make a determined effort to change that, and the listeners too. If you really love knowing, true knowing, please get out and get one of these books. The Secret of Light would be a great place to start. Atomic Suicide, New Concept of the Universe. All these are great books, just wonderful. Here's another one from page 173, guys. All nature is an expression of the two desires of the Creator. The desire for separation from the oneness of rest in Him into a multiplicity of imaged forms in His imaging, and for avoidance of that multiplicity by a return to rest in His oneness. So there's just two desires by the Creator: to separate into two and give duality so that He can experience Himself and give love so that love may give again. And then the other desire is to go back to rest. How beautiful and simple is that? And that's how the universe works, pulsating, in-breathing and out-breathing. And there it is. The Hindus have been saying it all along. Brahma, out-breath, in-breath.
The great illusion, the Maya, the 3D cosmic light cinema.
Yeah, and I've been using the illustration which I borrowed from Walter Russell about the silent string. I use that quite a bit because I'm a musician, and you guys are too, all of you. You strike that string, and out of the silence comes this beautiful music. But where does the song return to? Always returns to the stillness, where all potentiality exists. All potential. So, absolutely exquisite. Absolutely exquisite. Radiation is light outwardly bound from the seed. Gravitation is light inwardly bound toward the seed. Now, how many scientists are going to tell you that that's what gravity is?
Right. And we must qualify that just a little bit. That's coming from the Secret of Light, right?
Yeah.
It was amended slightly in Atomic Suicide, where gravity is actually stillness. And electricity, can locate the points and shafts of gravity, of spheres and rings, but it's not the cause of gravity. Gravity is omnipresent. It's the omnipresent still magnetic light, just like magnetism is also stillness. It's planes of stillness, cathode planes, whereas gravity is points and shafts of stillness. So it's omnipresent. It's everywhere.
How is gravity related to magnetism?
They're basically the same thing. I was just saying that, points and shafts of still magnetic light create the axis mundi, the shaft upon which spheres turn, or ring systems for that matter, like galaxies. Whereas magnetism is the planes in the cube that are the cathode planes of stillness, which control the spiraling electric waveforms which give form to the electric universe. The Creator's magnetic universe is stillness. It's absolute stillness, zero curvature, and absolute cold. What we have to realize is everything we see in the electric universe is an aberration. It's a tension created out of the stillness, and it will return to the stillness. And electricity is the cause of that aberration, of the tensions, the sex-divided tensions of male and female spiraling electric lights, which give form to creation.
Yeah, and this would be in theology. This is the demiurge, the created creator.
Right.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of people get stumbled. I mean, the churches have got the right books. They've all got the right books. There's no doubt about that. The Bible has pure science in it. It just needs to be understood. They've got the right books, but it's their ignorant interpretation of this that is what's destroying them and keeping them in ignorance, because what they do is they pay homage to the demiurge, the created, and believe that in that matter is where the creator exists. But the creator exists in the matter through the vibration, but he exists outside of it in the stillness. And this is what they can't come to terms with, because they are worshipping the Lord that does things. I am the God of armies, for instance. I am the jealous God, etc.
Right.
So it's a big stumbling block, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But, I think what version? What was our part of the unit we had where we dealt with magnetism and electricity? Matt, was that 10? Unit 10?
Yeah, 10 was the inert gases, 9 was the cube.
Oh, okay, yeah, where we explained in great detail the difference between the Creator's magnetic universe of stillness, and then which is the cause of everything, and then the effects, which are the electric universe, temporal motions, spiraling motions, which is what we're looking at. So it's the unseen universe that we don't see, but that's where the Creator resides. That's where the thing is unknowing.
Just to further clarify what you said, Santos, about men worshiping the created as opposed to the uncreated, could be likened or using a simile. It's like worshiping a symphony, say Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, if people worship that, then they would not know of the man that created it. They would simply worship the music and the motion, which is reproduced in motion. So, when you know the cause, you know that Beethoven was the cause of the Fifth Symphony, not the Fifth Symphony itself. So, as opposed to worshiping what is in motion, we should worship what isn't in motion, and that's where we connect through the soul to the stillness, which is in the center of each one of us and the center of all other things. So it's through that center of no motion that we find that oneness and that connection to all that is. And that's what we should really be worshiping, not something in motion. So all those people out there that worship gods and goddesses are doing a disservice to the reality of the situation, because they're worshiping something that's in motion, a divided sexlessness, exactly, a divided sexlessness. In other words, the male and female. If you're worshiping one side or the other of creation, you're still worshiping something in motion. So if you think of the Creator in terms of sexless stillness and silence. It requires no words. It simply requires an understanding that there is no motion, there is no sound, and there is no sex, and there is no division in this Creator that the Russells spoke highly of. And I think most religions at their core say the same thing, if I'm correct.
And our science, too. Also the science. We have a science that looks at the effects of everything. We don't look at the causes, and that's why Russellian science is superior, is because it explains the causes. And that was the big problem with academia. They removed the Creator from creation. And once you do that, it's like you're talking about little fundamental quantums of energy having energy like, ether particles and all this nonsense, because they're looking at effects, they're not looking at the cause. That cause comes from stillness, which the senses cannot perceive, but the mind can know it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it takes a long time to arrive at that point, but the one that does is a very, very happy person. And guys, I'm getting happier and more joyful every day through this knowledge. It's just I've never professed to be some kind of a clairvoyant or a guru or anything like that. I'm just a researcher, but I can tell you something. I am getting more and more illuminated every day, thanks to people like Walter Russell. What a fun
liberating.
It's liberating.
Hey, Santo.
Yeah.
Santo, just to share a couple of thoughts, things that I found very practical and very now moment oriented. Because one of the things that I've discovered, especially of late, is one, all the world is a stage, and I love the Russellian approach of the ebb and flow of the cosmic cycle, the breathe in, breathe out. And for me, in order for time to exist in space, I look at all of the world as a stage. You got your extras, you got your directors, and all the rest of it, of the one consciousness, directing a game where all of our perspectives are returning to love at different points to allow for time to exist, and so we can have a game. And I think one of the reasons why Russellian hasn't been out there as much as it should be is because, quite frankly, I look at it and not everyone is ready to open the Christmas presents.
Yeah.
It's just to allow for a continuance of the game, and it's a movie. I mean, all I've been doing for the last couple of weeks is following my white rabbits as they appear, and when you finally start seeing the synchronicities and the coincidences and all the rest of the ironies, whatever you want to call it, as soon as you get into that beautiful stillness of the now, and you just become the observer, the motionless observer, everything just shows up. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Nature tells you everything you need to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you have to make a decision at some stage to self-determine your life, because the difference between where we are right now and the consensus sheeple is that they're happy for Big Brother government or priest down at the local church or their institutions of education to manipulate their thinking and tell them what to think. So let's hope and pray that things will change soon in that respect, because this is truly, truly liberating to know how wonderful and wise we really are as a race, and we can reach out to greater, higher wisdom. It's just there for the taking, really. Great to see. And this is why, guys, this is why the Egyptians had the Netas and the depictions of animals, and Thoth with his ibis head, and Horus with his hawk head, Amun-Ra with his ram's head, because they were not at all worshippers of the vibration and the effect, but they used the symbols therein to convey higher meanings and to convey the idea of the archetypes, which all then point to the still creator of magnetic light. That was the purpose of doing this. They knew that by kissing the sun in the morning while facing east dressed in linen, the Therapeutae in the deserts near Alexandria, for instance, and the Essenes and all of those sun respecters. You see, this is why we get a lot of flack. I get a lot of flack from, well, I can only call them ignorant people that say, oh, astrology, worshipping a bunch of rocks, that went out with the pagans when Christianity brought light into this world and taught us that... Anyway, but the point is that once we acknowledge that the sun is a symbol, it's a beautiful physical and spiritual symbol telling us of the glory of the still one that put it there. And as you said, Robert, before, that's what we should be worshipping, the sun behind the sun, the one that put it there, because we look up to it and say, thank you for the light and the glory and the photosynthesis and the warmth and the love that emanates from this beautiful orb, the sun. But we don't worship the sun. We worship and adore.
Yeah, the same thing could be said of the Maya and the Hunab Ku. You know, it's the galactic center, the spherical light at the center of the galaxy. You know, the creator's behind that sun also, you know. Yeah, and look at this, what Russell has to say on page 190. He says, and I read this yesterday too, it's just worth repeating, you can never get enough. All things in this solar system come from the sun and return to it. The germ, the life germ for which man is seeking is in the sun. The idea of man is in the sun. Likewise, all idea of all things is in the sun, awaiting birth into form. The pulsing light of polarity borns all idea into its form when conditions are favourable for each idea to be mothered by an extension of the sun. Everything in nature is a moving extension from a still point of the one light. The center of the sun in our solar system is the still point of light from which everything in the entire solar system radiates spirally and towards which it gravitates spirally for its resurrection into another cycle. Absolutely. Hey, if I might add, too, you know, in The Way of Lies, The Secret of Creation, Dr. Timothy Binder's book, page 116, it says, suns are the storehouses of mind idea. Suns are the seeds of all creation. Solar systems are the seeds of suns. Through the planets of suns, all idea of mind is unfolded into image forms, and the drama of creation made possible. That is the purpose of suns.
Wow, you're going to read that in any the modern day scientific books, are you?
Ain't going to happen.
No, it's a thermonuclear hydrogen nuclear bomb.
Sure.
etc.
Yeah, we just
Sorry,
happen to be close enough to it that we don't freeze, right? Like being close to a campfire.
Right, exactly.
Silliness, man. Pure silliness.
Just a dumb theory. You know, the sad part of that is, you know, these eggheads have wasted literally $100 billion creating tokamak fusion reactors based on the myth that the sun is a nuclear furnace. That's taxpayer dollars thrown down the hellhole for nothing because the sun's not a nuclear furnace, and they'll never get these tokamak nuclear fusion reactors to work because it's a flawed theory. Doesn't exist.
Yeah. Wow. So they're pouring lots of taxpayer money so that all of these armies of scientists all around the world are employed looking in the wrong direction for useless, harmful technology which is hurting mankind, but puts a lot of money in those Swiss bank accounts. And that's about it.
Which also at the same time ensures that they can sell as much oil and coal and uranium as they can possibly sell at the highest dollar. It's a racket, you know?
Yep. They've got it all worked out for their advantage. It is a racket. It's absolutely a racket. And it's over.
Yeah. Their day's done.
Yeah, new day's dawning. New day's dawning. I'm looking forward to, as I just read there, gravitating toward the sun for resurrection into another cycle. So, as the ancient philosophers Plato, Pythagoras, and all of those great schools were saying, that the suns are portals by which we have to go through to ascend to our pristine home of unconditioned consciousness in the Empyrean.
Yeah.
We have to go through those portals. We have to go through the sun. And this is why the scriptures say, no one goes to the Father except through me. That's the Jesus Christ figure speaking. In other words, the sun. No one goes to the Father of still light unless you go through me, the sun of physical motion.
The true meaning.
Yeah. Now, being musicians, we do a lot in octaves, so we know what an octave is. And isn't it interesting, guys, that both light and sound are expressed in octaves or septenaries? Light, that we see at least, has 7 colours in the spectrum. And sound, the 7 diatonic tones of the music scale, which round out to an octave, are also expressed in octaves or whatever, 7s. But light, well, God is light, and the only begotten, the Word of God, notice the word which is sometimes called the Logos, which we know as sound, is also expressed in 7. So you see the sun, sound, which is born from light, is imitating the Father, which is also a 7-fold expression. How's that? Would you like to? I'd love your take on that.
You getting that, Matt? Is Matt still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Rob. You take it, and I'll cover out the other end.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. No, I thought you were going to handle that one. So, what was the question?
Well, I think it's the octave. It's both in light. There's an octave in light, and there's an octave in sound, right?
Right.
And that's just beautiful because Walter Russell says that everything in the wave expresses itself as an octave. Now I present the wave in 12 sections. When I do the sine wave in my presentations, I present it in 12 sections, and they are the 30-degree segments of the zodiac. But if you look carefully at the zodiac wheel, you can see 12 for sure. It's there, but you can also see the 8. Now,
so you're including the halftones too.
Sorry?
You're including halftones too. It's just not full tones. The 7 full tone octave. The 12-tone scale.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's the. There's 2 halftones there. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. Well, the Egyptians also had a 7-tone cosmology, which was the heptonymus. I'm sure you're aware of that from Gerald Massey's writings. The original cosmology, the earliest cosmology, was based on the 7 pole stars, which were attributed, falsely to the so-called precession of the equinoxes. But there are 7 pole stars over a period of about 26,000 years. As the solar serpent wobbles its way, around, above and below the galactic ecliptic, that's what's happening. It's not the precession of the equinoxes, but it's an earthbound illusion where our position of the North Pole is pointing at different pole stars over that period, 7 of them.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Gerald Massey was expounding on that in his book Ancient Egypt.
Light of the world.
They certainly knew their science, guys, because they based it on the big cycle of precession, you see, whereas science is still in denial of precession. They still deny it, and yet you can check it out even on superficial searches on the internet, like on Wikipedia. It gives you great information about precession, and yet in the academic world, there's no speaking of it at all.
Right, and of course they claim it's from the wobbling of the axis, if they do speak of it at all. And the axes of all planets in the sun are all parallel; they don't wobble. Those are illusions created by our mutual helical trajectories.
Oh, please explain.
Earthbound illusions due to our mutual helical trajectories as we follow the sun. And, like we were talking about earlier in one of our earlier conversations about ellipses, Walter Russell states implicitly that there's no such thing as an ellipse. It's an earthbound illusion that Kepler capitalized on with his mathematics, And in reality, if you were to sit at the sun and look back upon the vortex following it, of the planets and their helical trajectories, all of the planets would be creating perfect circles. They would not be returning to the same point. There's no such thing as an orbit, because that's what an orbit, implies, is that a planet starts, or a sun or whatever starts at one point, goes around a circle or an ellipse and comes back to the same point. That's impossible, because everything's moving forward in its trajectory as we spiral around the galaxy.
So this would be an illusion created by the vortex, because at certain points in the vortex, would we be closer to the sun or not?
No, the sun, the distance remains exactly the same. Yeah. In the academic model, they claim that it's changing all the time. There's ellipses, we're closer, we speed up, we slow down. All this stuff's basically insane. It's absolutely absurd. There's nothing like that could even happen. What's happening is we remain the same distance. We basically carve out a circle if you were to condense it into 2 dimensions, but it's a helical trajectory. It's spiral. We're spiraling behind the sun, and that's why the sun has its own spiraling path as well. You see, we're spiraling behind it, but it isn't going in a straight line, or neither is it undulating, because there's no such thing as undulating waves. It is spiraling in 3 dimensions. So as we follow the sun, and from our earthbound perspective, it may appear that the pole is changing due to a wobbling of our axis, but it's not a wobbling of our axis. It's a wobbling of the entire solar system, because the solar system is the solar serpent. It's like a big snake, moving through 3 dimensions as it wobbles its way above and below the galactic ecliptic around the galaxy.
Hey, that's put a thought in my mind. The analemma. Now, the analemma is a beautiful pattern of the figure 8, which occurs in the sky anywhere in the sky if you observe the sun at any given point through its trajectory through the heavens. And that analemma would actually explain this solar system wobble, wouldn't it?
Right, because it's the axial shift. The Earth is not inclined upon its axis as claimed by academia at 23 whatever degrees, right? What it is there, you can see the four stations of it. If the poles remain parallel between all planets and the sun, there would be four stations. At the equator, you would have two equinoxes, in which at the top of the vortex, it would be, summer in the southern hemisphere, and which at the bottom of the vortex, it would be summer in the northern hemisphere, due to your position in the vortex and the relationship of the light that's coming from the sun. So it has nothing to do with an inclined axis or a wobbling of the axis. All axes remain parallel as we move, as we follow the sun.
Right. I'm trying to wrap my head around that one because let's say summer occurs when the Earth is above the plane, and then winter occurs when it's below that plane.
In which hemisphere are you speaking of?
Well, let's
Your hemisphere or ours?
Yeah, let's go with the northern hemisphere then. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're in the northern hemisphere and you are above the plane in the vortex, you're having summer, right?
90 degrees above it. 90 degrees above it, at the very top of the wave, that you make from one equinox to the other, from one equatorial plane of the sun to the other. At that 90-degree point, that's when Australia would be most illuminated, right? Mm-hmm. And if we go to the very bottom at 90 degrees below the solar equator, then the northern hemisphere is getting all the light. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, wow, that's so simple. That is absolutely so simple. Did you get that, Kate?
That's all in chapter 8 in my book. There's lots of diagrams from Dr. Batt's work and his videos on YouTube. Solar System: A New Interpretation by Dr. Keshava Batt. It also shows these phenomena.
Yeah, Dr. Batt rocks. Love him. Nassim, love him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there was a question in the chat. That's why I was distracted there, Santo. The question is how long to transfer from the galactic plane? I would say plane, I guess, unless I copy and pasted it wrong. Let me see. Was it? Yeah, plane. So how long to transfer from the galactic plane?
What I don't understand the question.
I'm trying to think of the context in which the question is asked as well here. Anyway, actually, if you could, just reiterate what you just said there as far as the northern and southern hemisphere illusions.
Restate it one more time?
Yeah, would you please? That would be great. I think that might answer the question.
Sure. There's four stations, right? The four seasons. There's two equinoxes and two solstices, right? So as we follow the sun in a huge vortex behind it, the two times that we cross the the solar equator, that's what we call our equinoxes, right? And then the solstices would be when we're 90 degrees above that, at the top of the vortex or at the bottom of the vortex, respectively, right?
Yeah.
So if the Earth is at the top of the vortex, the southern hemisphere is being exposed more by the sun. If you go down to the bottom of the vortex, the northern hemisphere is going to be, more illuminated by the sun.
Yeah.
There's a 30-degree cone of illumination. You need to go look at Dr. Batt's work. He shows you that there's a 30-degree cone of illumination where the sun's, light is the most intense on the surface of the Earth. And it's all explained in great detail. I can't possibly condense it in a few minutes here, so.
No, but you're absolutely right. People have to get 3D in their thinking instead of going orbital, heliocentric. They've got to get into this forward-moving sine wave, which creates the spiral. And when
right. Well, Yeah, it's a spiraling wave. It's actually not a sine wave, but yeah, it's the dynamic motions of the solar system as opposed to the static, flat, pancake, two-dimensional, time-stopped representation we've all had on these posters since we were children and stuff, and we see in all the textbooks. This is absolute bullshit.
Right. Now, one of the things that this might help convey this 3D concept is I'm going to compare it flying an airplane and driving a car. You see, when I'm driving the car, I have for me it's two-dimensional because you have direction, speed and direction. Unless of course you're crazy and you like going over ramps and stuff. But when you're when you're in an airplane, you have pitch, roll, and yaw. So you're now into a very three-dimensional sort of thinking, and that's why like Dr. Batt's work was so easy to see. Until you can actually experience that pitch, roll, and yaw physically for yourself and live it, it's tough to describe. You're right.
Right. Well, it's the flatland version versus the flyers version. You know.
If I may also add to that, Walter Russell spoke of if you stood 100 men breast to breast, and they were arm in arm, they would radially line up. They wouldn't be in a straight line because the two men on the end of those 100 men would be slightly lower at that point than so basically being that the Earth is curved and that all direction is curved and all motion is spiral. 1,000 people standing arm in arm, you would have a radial line. You would not have a straight linear line at all whatsoever. So that just goes to show you that all direction in the universe is curved and all motion is spiral, and that's fundamental to understanding this 3D universe.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. And again, it's I think people could. I always like to go into practical sort of approaches to people. Go out and learn to fly, like a model airplane or something, and you'll start to get that concept right quick, or it's going to get expensive crashing little airplanes. Okay, so.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a question now. This is going to be a toughie. Conjunctions. How do the planets that are way, way back in the vortex, like Uranus and Saturn, conjunct with the Sun when we're dealing in astrology? For instance, right now, the Sun is in Sagittarius, and Saturn is in the next sign. It's only 30 degrees away in Scorpio, right? So, how does that take place? Can you elaborate on that, please?
They get obscured from the brightness of the sun, right? And the helical rising is when it emerges from that brightness, that illumination, which obscures the path. But if you go check out the data on how long the outer planets are invisible, in the brightness of the sun, they don't go behind it, you find out it's only a few weeks. If they were on the other side of the sun, it would be several months in minimum. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they're so far out. They're moving so slow, and we've got to move, and then the sun's between us, and it's illuminating the entire sky, so we can't see past it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also, if you look at the rings of Saturn, you'll look at the academic version, and it looks like they're wobbling like freaking crazy, But the truth of the matter is we're seeing it from different positions in our mutual helical trajectories, because sometimes we're below it. When it's at the top, we're below, and when it's at the bottom, we're above it. And that takes, 27 years, basically, for a full, what's called an axial shift rotation, an entire circle made through a helical trajectory, which actually I call a circumferential spiral trajectory. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love how you guys talk.
Oh, thanks. I've got a good page on Dr. Batt, a memorial page on my website, and it's got all these illustrations so people can see this real easily.
Yeah. Last month there was a conjunction of Saturn, Venus, and Mercury. They were very, very close to each other in the sky, right? Above the pyramid. And I think it was early this month, actually. Yeah, the 3rd of December. Can you elaborate on how that happens then?
I'm not really familiar with that specific conjunction, but I can just give you a little bit more proof in relationship to this. That if we were on a flat pancake, orbital system with the heliocentric version that we've been taught in academia, we would have an eclipse every month from the moon. And also, we would have Mercury and Venus eclipsing us constantly. But the transit of Venus only happens twice in a period of about 121 years. There's two. We just went through one like this last year. You get to that, right? Yeah. So I mean, if in fact we were on a flat pancake, it'd be going every year. I mean, it'd be happening several times a year because Venus is moving faster than us and all that. So it's extremely rare. It only happens twice over an 8-year period, over 121-year total period. So, I mean, these are all red flags for people that they should, basically say, well, obviously this pancake, version that we've been taught is not true.
Yeah, it's really done a lot of damage. I mean, it's going to take a long time for people who are into astronomy and the solar system to wrap their minds around all of these different concepts like perihelion and aphelion, the analemma, the ellipses, eclipses. Also, here's another one: Venus being a morning star in the springtime and an evening star in the autumn. These are things that just don't really make sense with the current model. You just cannot ever get to know your solar system with that model. It's a block.
Exactly. And at the heart of that's the gravitation of Newton, where there's this inward pulling force, that somehow pulls stronger on bigger planets and weaker on less planets. It's just garbage. All these effects that we're seeing are due to electrical compression. They have nothing to do with an inward pulling gravity. It doesn't exist. And imagine that. Newton took these ideas based on the idea that like the moon is like a cannonball. It was being shot out of a cannon, and it's got its trajectory thanks to that, right? And then they've taken that information, which is not true, and they've taken that information, they've extrapolated that to the furthest reaches of the universe. And they've got all these massive tables and calculations that are based on this, and they're all false. So astronomy is a disaster. It really is. I mean, they actually believe that stars, the bigger stars, have a bigger fuel tank. That's why they're so big. They haven't burned all their fuel yet. When in fact bigger stars are adult stars. It's like everything in nature conforms to the seamless cosmology where it's birth small, it grows, it gets to adulthood, and it withers away and is reborn again. And so they've got that completely backwards too. And you could just go on and on and on. If anybody's interested in this, I would suggest reading the several volumes written by D.B. Larson on the universe and astronomy. I mean, he's gone line by line through all the work and just demolished it all.
Yeah, I have a quick perspective I'd like to get your opinion on. It's been kind of where I've been at for a long time. I mean, I look at our sun, which is, in relative terms, a very juvenile. It's a baby sun, compared to Aldebaran or Arcturus or any of those larger suns. And I equated that to a consciousness aspect of creator. The more consciousness that has been able to be flowed at the sun, or those particular suns, the larger they get. So it's about the ebb and flow of creation with me. So I just want to get your perspective on that. What do you think?
You want to address the prolation and oblation, Matt?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. See if I'm up to speed on my studies of the science here. Well, Russell said our sun is at maturity because it's a perfect sphere or close to it. So it's amplified in the carbon octave. Perfect sphere is the center point of the carbon octave. It's reached basically its midpoint, its wave crest amplitude, and you can see other suns in the forms of supernovas that eject their centers. And one quick thing to point out here about black holes is if black holes were true, then there'd be no ejections from any suns or stars that we see out in the universe. We would only see basically a collapse of what was there, but actually what we see is a full-on ejection of the core into a ring, which we call supernovas. So, I mean, that's something to question about, black holes, whether, obviously they don't exist because there'd be no ejection point. There'd be nothing escaping in the form of a ring. So your adult stars that are ejecting their centers in the form of supernovas are the dying stars. Stars that are in prolation toward their spherical, true sphere shape are growing stars. They're generating, and the more they get toward that center carbon amplitude wave crest point of spherical perfection is when the planets that they give off through their own ring ejection will begin to show signs of life among them as well. As far as your question, I would say I would have to cite Russell in that, the sun is at least on the approach or at the point of wave crest amplitude. And, over the next billion or so, 2 billion, 3 billion, who knows how many years, we'll begin to see the sun grow and expand. If, depending on how many lives we live on this particular planet, we may not see it, but you can guarantee that this sun eventually will too oblate, and the Earth is oblating as well. It's beginning to, it's already got one child, our moon, and as you can see, the planets further out from the Earth have many children, which are the grandchildren of the sun. So basically, it's an aging process. When you look at the universe in terms of parents and children, it makes a hell of a lot more sense. It's much more easier to understand instead of thinking in terms of scientific modalities where they say that there's a cloud of dust, that happened to cool and just so happened to be far enough away from the sun that it provided for the Earth to appear. That's almost laughable in the face of cosmic truth, but I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
oh yeah, it was just
that was
my
best attempt there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. As far as I can tell, anyway, it's just a consciousness thing, and again, it's that we come from the child through adulthood to old age, and then we go nova, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you look at the planets, I mean, the planets are like old people. They have many rings. Who do you know that's old that has no rings? Anybody? Unless you get a face.
The eyes oblate too, right?
Yeah, the eyes oblate. The butt oblates. The waist oblates. I'm starting to oblate my waist. I'm only 41 years old. It's like, damn, already. But this is true stuff. You can't. We're just not as active. We begin to throw off rings under our eyes. Our skin hangs off our limbs. This is what returning to stillness is. You can't be generating all your life. So this idea around the elite circles that they're going to live for thousands of years with some sort of technology that they implant in their brains. Good luck to you, folks. We'll see how that works out for you. But I'm quite content that I'm immortal and I will come back, and basically all things in nature do so. So just live your life to the fullest and be happy with that, and you'll live a much better life. Don't fear death. Just live for the moment. Do good things. Give to others. Enrich yourself through the giving to others, and that what you do to enrich others, you only do to mirror that effect and enrich yourself in the process. And it's a very simple existence. We've complicated it through so many other external modalities. We've complicated a very simple existence into one of just a morass of total just insanity. But that's why the yogis laugh at Western man. They just find it almost insane, the things we do to please ourselves. The simplest explanation is always the most truthful. So
couldn't agree more. Thanks. That works.
Well, Russell made it simple. The secret of the universe is in the wave. By the way, I didn't finish that. When I do the sine wave, I always do the circle and divide it into 12 30-degree segments. That's how the zodiac is, right? But 8, the octave, is very, very apparent and very, very obvious in that graph. I mean, look at the cardinal points. So you've got the cardinal signs of the zodiac: Aries on the equator, Cancer, well, at the Tropic of Cancer. That would be 90 degrees removed from Aries. Then you go back to the equator again at Libra. Then you go to the Tropic of Capricorn, which is another wave amplitude point. So you've got your 2 equinoxes, and you've got the 2 tropic zones, which give you the 90-degree points. So there's your cardinal points. But in the middle of those, you have the cross-quarter days. You see, so there's the 8-spoked wheel, and that is the octave. It's in the 8-spoked wheel. That just stood out to me yesterday when I was looking at it, because I was reading Russell, and he was insisting and talking about the octave, and I thought, how does the octave fit over the 12? Because he doesn't do the 12. He doesn't go into the 12 very much, you know, and the astrological side of all of this. But he's always focusing on this octave. Well, there it is. Clear as day.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing for you guys. You're going to love this. You're going to absolutely love this. I was a Jehovah's Witness for most of my life, so that's where this is coming from. But in my hands, I've got a book called Thy Kingdom Come by Charles Taze Russell, the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And in the year... this is what he wrote about the solar system. This guy was pretty advanced, guys. He was pretty advanced. He was killed in 1916 by Judge Rutherford, the second president of the Jehovah's Witnesses, Jesuit infiltrator, and he was sent in to destroy Russell because Russell, even though Russell was, not 100% on the money, he was pretty accurate. This is what he says in the volume Thy Kingdom Come, Series 3. For all the listeners out there that may have this book, I got this book from an old sister who knew that I was such a great student of the Bible 25 years ago, and she wanted me to have her old books, and this one's in pristine condition. He says there, the sun is not a dead center. Sorry, let me start from the start of the sentence. Science has at last discovered that the sun is not a dead center, with planets wheeling about it, and itself stationary. It is now ascertained that the sun also is in motion, carrying with it its splendid retinue of comets, planets, its satellites, and theirs around some other and vastly mightier centre. Now, he goes on to say that that centre is Alcyone. Alcyone, then, as far as science has been able to perceive, would seem to be the midnight throne in which the whole system of gravitation has its central seat, and from which the Almighty governs his universe. But I found that mind-blowing, that he knew back then in the 1800s that the sun is not a dead centre, and it is in full motion through the heavens, carrying with it all its retinue of planets, satellites, and moons. How's that?
Right, yeah. It said that we have
Beautiful.
a 180 million year helical trajectory behind Alcyone. We're one of the 7 stars birthed by Alcyone.
And would you say that Maya, Merope, Electra, and all the other stars of the Pleiades are the others?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't say it. That the Inca said this, and many other groups have said that. They've called Alcyone the central sun, which our sun was birthed from.
Yeah. Yeah. When you look up to the Pleiades, guys, and if you focus enough, you will see it's in a spiral.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very obvious.
It is very obvious.
Now Alcyon sits at the apex of that spiral. So, I mean, these people watch this stuff. The Maya, the Inca, they watch this stuff all the time, and they watched it for long, long, long periods of time. So they have detailed records, and they could chart this stuff. We're just barely scratching the surface with modern astronomy,
Before light pollution.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm fortunate to live out in the middle of a rural Missouri, Santos, so I get a very nice view of the starry heavens any night I choose to look up when we're not bombarded by chemtrails. But it's incredible. You see the bands of the Milky Way, and you can see just the incredible strata that blankets the sky in such a beautiful way. It's something near and dear to my heart to be in the middle of the woods out here and have that sort of a connection to the cosmos. Wow.
Yeah, I grew up on the farm, and I always had my nose up in the heavens, and Orion was always getting my attention. We called it, as kids, we called it the saucepan, and we're always pointing up, oh, there's the saucepan, and almost opposite, or not opposite, but in a different part of the sky toward the south is the Southern Cross. We are very blessed to have this beautiful constellation, the Southern Cross. It's just gorgeous, Centaurus, and it's always in the sky. It never sets. It's always going around, just like your, Big Dipper and Polaris and all of that. So, but certainly it's beautiful and clear in the country to look up and see the stars. Now with your smartphone applications, you can actually point to them and they'll tell you the star configurations and tell you all the stars in there. So today, with this modern technology, take advantage of it, even though it's very harmful, be careful, but you can actually chart out the stars out in the open. You can go out into a field and just have your phone with you and point it up, and it tells you the names of all the stars. What a better time to get to know the heavens.
Indeed, and what a better time to have a better use of technology. I mean, technology is really neutral, but just that kind of an application there. My Lori has her little iPad, and we'll step outside and look up at the sky, and I'm quick to say, oh, look how far off. The iPad's not exactly correct, because Jupiter is actually about 20 degrees to the right of where it's showing it should be. So it's not quite perfect, but it is a good use of technology, like the musical instrument. It's just compared to the bomb and the gun and the bullet. I mean, this kind of technology is where we should have been heading for the overall human race for many years. And, the more this stuff kind of pops up, and the more we can move away from drones and man-killing man mode, which is really where I see the benefit of 2012 is a new beginning. So it's just, we should be using technology to beautify our world, not make it uglier.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is technology that is doing that. That's unstoppable. As much as the controllers would love for us not to have that, we do have the internet, and they don't like it. They're trying to find ways of stopping that, but here we are having this wonderful conversation by means of the internet, and we can be thankful for that. Let's hope that the new world that begins in a few days, hopefully the new world of high consciousness will all take a deep breath and just put away the guns and all of the weapons and all of the rubbish and filthy dividing devices that we've created, and just continue forward to implement great technologies that will be to the advantage of the human race. I mean, look at some of the other civilizations that have been on this earth, on this planet, and there's evidence of it. The people who built the Great Pyramid certainly knew what they were doing in terms of technology. They had instruments for lifting stones and carving into diorite and porphyry and diamond and all of these hard stones. They would actually carve them like butter. So they had had great technology. We don't need to look to extraterrestrial races. We just need to go back to Egypt or the Mayans and see that we do come from a very, very, very advanced conscious soul group, and we're not these dumb barbarians who came from, caves and evolved, and now here we are with this technology, and we're the best that we've ever been. We've devolved, if anything, but there's signs of this beautiful, harmless technology all around us.
Absolutely. And if I might add, I'd like to let your listeners know that we have a newsletter coming out in just a couple days. We wrote several articles in this particular newsletter, but basically you can go to thesecretoflight.com and click on contact, and you can sign up for that newsletter. And basically one of the feature articles is written by Crystal Clark, who wrote a book called Who Are We 101. Basically, the end of her writing, she wrote, 2012 is a culmination. The 21st through the 25th, she believes, is going to be a date where there's going to be unusual conscious activity in the human mind among all people. And to qualify that, if you think about it, there's been no other date in the history of mankind that has been more shared. Even Y2K didn't have a tenth of the amount of people focused on it. There is more focus on this date, more awareness, and energy goes where attention flows, as David Icke said. So there is more focus and awareness on this date, the 21st, than any other time in the history of the entire human world ever. So, as Crystal Clark said, have a pad of paper and a pen ready, standing by, because the inspirations, could you imagine all of us having a divine illumination of our own at the same time? Be ready to write it down is the point. Be ready to pay close attention. Don't be distracted by the garbage from the external world. Tune that shit out and be focused on what is happening in your immediate zone. Be focused on how your mind is affected by the global awareness that is going to take place. There is no other date in the history of mankind that is more important than the 21st of this year. And it's incredible. I mean, it's just to think of the amount of people that are focused on this, the amount of consciousness and attention, and it's just amazing. I mean, I can't wait to see what, and I'm already feeling it. I almost can feel it before it's even here. But it's very real. I mean, this is something to pay very close attention to. Have your pad and paper and pen ready and write down your imaginings, and who knows what the hell we're going to come up with. I mean, it may be a time of incredible transition. I think it will be. So just wanted to let you guys know that, to pay close attention.
Yeah, it only happens once every 25,625 years. So, yeah, we got front row seats.
Can't wait. The birthday of the universe. It's right 3-4 days away. We're here.
Yeah, indeed. And there's really no time beyond that we all have been. Has anybody said, oh, there's a day beyond this that we're all looking toward that might be? There's no day beyond this. This is the day. This is the day. So, keep your awareness about you, keep your head centered, stay centered, be aware of the things going on inside of you, not so much the things going on around you, but inside of you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing anything silly on that day. My son was telling me that all his mates want to do an acid trip, I said to him, no. If you want to do an entheogen, you do it before that, after that. Why are you picking these guys are musos, they're rappers, and one of his bandmates is his name's Bones, and he reckons he's going to get trips for everybody because it's going to be great. And I said to my son, don't you dare, man, don't. This is a holy day. This is the birthday of the universe. This is Absolutely. You need all your senses with you. You want to take an entheogen, do it some other day. Pay respect to this day because we've all been waiting for it. We've been in a shithole for thousands of years, almost unconscious. We have been almost totally unconscious, like animals almost, for how little we've been able to make use of our divinity. Man, there is an exquisite divinity. I don't have to preach this to the converted. I mean, all the listeners know this, but it's nice to be reminded. We are divine sons of light beyond our expectations. We haven't even got the faintest idea. We can say that we know. I always say that I know, but I still haven't got the faintest idea of how divine I might be. And so let's rejoice. We're here, and keep your, as Moses was instructed, take your sandals off. This is holy ground. You are on holy ground. Respect it and honor it. And these are holy days coming up, and the word holy comes from the sun. And as we read before from Walter Russell, everything born in this solar system comes from the still light that is posited in the center of our sun. I'd like to write an article on this and send it to all the science magazines.
Yeah, I might just add real quick, Santos, we have an interview on that day. As we cross the galactic ecliptic, we're going to be on David William Gibbons' Crossing the Bridge program. So it's, it was actually perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Signing up for that day.
Yeah, I'm on a few shows too, Truth Connections and an Italian show on that day. So I'm going to be pretty busy.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget.
That's great.
Fanatic Cosmic Blueprints too, right? Tony and myself. So feel free to jump in on that one too. So we're gonna have a party.
It's a marathon.
Sounds fun.
Oh, yeah.
This is indeed a marathon. I mean, it's great to be alive, and I think for all of us, it's really the culmination of imagination meeting itself in the void. I love it. It's nobody exactly knows what's going to happen, but if only 200 people bring something back from this, this focus, this beam of consciousness. In fact, I go as far as to predict, if somebody can check this out, who's in the Freedom Reigns chat room, maybe go to the Global Consciousness Project and see how these random number generators are beginning to act right now. I'm sure they're going to be off the freaking charts by the 20th of this month. So I'm sure we're going to see an increase in random number synchronicity happen over this period of time, as they did during 9/11, which was the only other day of the Global Consciousness Project's history that there ever was such a unrandom generation of numbers. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's great to be here and to be part of this. So I say we fully stay aware and write down everything you possibly can and bring it back to share with the world.
I just might add real quickly something. I did write an article for this coming newsletter. If anybody wants to read this, it's in Russellian science, the galactic ecliptic is the south inertial plane of the cube. So it's a plane of still magnetic light, and what that means is that the center point is extended on this plane. So, as we were talking about Alcyon being the central sun of our sun, well, the central sun of Alcyon is Hunab-Ku, the being or the entity, the consciousness that's at the core of the galaxy that created all the star fields that are spiraling outwards from the galactic core.
Wow.
We don't have to travel to the galaxy's core is what I'm saying. Passing right through that plane of still magnetic light. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. We're going to pass through the still light. We're going to experience the still light. That's what we're going to cop.
And it'd be the same as going to the center of the galaxy,
Yeah, because it's extended from there. It's projected on that plane, and it's only in that plane. And the minds call it the dark rift.
Right, exactly.
Wow. And it's interesting that they knew that we pass this at certain intervals, and they isolated this particular one as a biggie and suggested that the fifth sun that will be born from it will be an ethereal sun, a new sun, and so the sun will also be passing through that 0 point. Everything goes through that 0 point of still light, and everything gets upgraded. The whole system. This is big. This is really big.
I'd like to add to that. This may be a little bit of speculation, but it's one of the more fanciful writings of Russell, and it's not necessarily written in stone, but he did say in one of his writings that he knew for a fact that the sun was pregnant. And Robert and I often would just imagine, as we talked after, 15 hours of video production in a day, we'd sit and we'd talk, and I'd ask him a question. I'd say, Rob, Walter said he knew for a fact the sun was pregnant. Do you suppose that when we cross the ecliptic, the sun might give birth because it's actually, inwinding and creating all this pressure, and when it hits that band, that ecliptic, that it might actually cause some sort of resonant, outwave where the ejection at 90 degrees would create a ring that's thrown off of the sun. And of course, it's all speculation, but planets do have to be born eventually. At some point in time, Mercury was born from the sun. At some point in time, Mars was, and the Earth and Venus. So it could very well be that we might see the birth of a planet. We may see the birth of a moon for each planet that's in the point of its lifespan. Like the Earth is far enough from the sun that it's already given birth once. We may see the actual birth of a planet. Who knows? It's just speculation. Everything is speculation at this point. But I thought it'd be kind of interesting to bring that up.
Yeah, it's not pure speculation, Matt, because actually Victor Schauberger confirms that. And you look in Living Energies, there's some diagrams, and you'll see how the rivers work, and he'll show that point between two arcs, two wave crests, which he called the energy cannon. Right? The ecliptic would be called the energy cannon.
Yeah, Victor, yes.
Do you remember that? I think that's in chapter 8 of my book.
I remember the diagram, indeed.
Yeah, exactly. So there is something, something of substance to that,
Interesting, yeah, indeed.
There was a question that came up from Santo's page. Santo, please explain symbology of the pyramid shape in our heart and speak more about heart center. Please, great show.
Oh, that one's not for me. That'd be for either, I think, Matt, you'd be the best one to deal with that one, because we're talking about what is in the center of the heart, and perhaps tie in what Frank Chester has discovered about the heart, and that the sun that we are looking for in our bodies is centered. That still point of light is centered in our hearts. Please, guys, if you can elaborate on that.
I'm going to give that to Robert. Robert,
okay.
Robert has actually been the guy who met Frank Chester and filmed Frank Chester several times speaking, so he's going to go ahead and take that. Thanks.
We've been friends for many years now, and been following Frank's work very closely. And he proved in his work that the heart does not pump blood. It basically is an implosion break. It has twin opposing vortices, just like a sun, just like an atom, just like a galaxy. They're based on twin opposing vortices. At the center point of those twin opposing vortices is a point of stillness, which controls those two. It's the fulcrum, where all energy comes from. So the seat of the soul would be there. Frank Chester has proved it empirically, and that's the way the heart functions. It's the seat of our soul. And Walter Russell says specifically, that the mind, the soul, is centered in the heart.
Wow. The sun is so crucial in all of this, isn't it? I mean, I only read little portions from Walter Russell. I've got another quote I want to share, guys, by Lyman E. Stowe. The Stowe family is very famous in America. They've produced a lot of great literature. And this guy wrote this book in 1907. He says this in his book, astrology, right, stows Bible astrology, and this is what I'm proving, that astrology is biblical, absolutely proving that it's biblical, and I've done that in my latest presentations. But he says this: the sun is our proper home, or the true Garden of Eden, from which we were cast out, and we cannot get back until we conquer all selfish and foolish desires. And the sun is the flaming sword turning every way which the Bible speaks of.
Absolutely. Isn't that the truth?
And he goes on to say, this is interesting too, while the sun in the great zodiac changes its influence upon us every 2,000 years, and hallelujah, we're coming into Aquarius now, which he speaks highly of, we are born to live and die at least once during the period the sun is transiting each sign of the zodiac, and at every round. Those who are fit to go to a higher sphere, and those who are not, must remain for another 26,000 years before they get another opportunity to graduate. The final graduation takes place just before the sun leaves Capricorn and enters the fiery Sagittarius. That's the point where he says that final graduation occurs. Everybody gets to graduate there. After Aquarius, then there's Capricorn, and then before the sun enters Sagittarius, everybody has an opportunity to graduate. But certainly, this point is a graduation point.
And the Maya said this era would end in destruction by water. Well, Aquarius is the water bearer, right? So it's symbolic, right?
She's pouring out knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the psychic waters of consciousness, and that's why the Bible also says that the final destruction will come by fire. It's either water or fire, water or fire. They are the only two elements that can purge. Water is the great cleanser, and fire is the great purger. But it's talking about symbolic fire and water. It's consciousness. See, Armageddon that the Jehovah's Witnesses are talking about. Oh, Armageddon's going to come and destroy this world. It's consciousness. That's what Armageddon is, because when we illuminate the world with light, guess what gets destroyed? All the fictions. And that's fire, conscious fire.
That's what we need. Now,
that is correct.
I was going to say something else with regards to water. I mean, you go to the ancient mysticism, and it's also like silver, representation of truth. So, yes, of course, the illusion is going to be destroyed with truth, and fire is the consciousness. I like it's one of the things I love about listening to you guys and Santo and people like Bill Donahue, because there's beautiful different perspectives on the same thing, and you get this beautiful pitch, roll, and yaw kind of look at things. So, yeah, of course, truth is going to definitely clean this up, and yeah, we're going to graduation.
Yeah, and for all the ones that prefer the darkness, perhaps, I don't know, without being judgmental, types like Hillary Clinton and people like that love killing Colonel Gaddafi's and all of these types, fictional people like Osama bin Laden. Well, it's the light that's coming is going to benefit them too. So don't be scared. You don't have to hang on to your fictions. Remember the great Bill Hicks when he said, "They've got a lot of money invested in this ride."
Look at my furrows of worry and my family. Right. This just must be real. Yeah, indeed, man. It's great. I mean, boy, I'll tell you, it's something else. I never thought I'd make it here. I'll tell you what, it's glorious to be alive. But no matter what happens, if nothing happens, I'm still grateful that enough of humanity is focused on a certain point that, there's certainly a consciousness shift, and we're seeing it happen all around us. Where, we're seeing the ramp up of the machine attempt to save itself. It's sort of the dying caterpillar versus the emergent butterfly metaphor that my friend John would often talk about. And the caterpillar, as it melts down in the cocoon into a liquid and the butterfly begins to emerge, the immune system of the caterpillar violently attacks the emergent butterfly. And it's relentless because it's trying to remain a caterpillar. It's afraid almost. It's scared to become the butterfly. So in that metaphorical aspect, I see that as very relevant to where we are, and that the military-industrial, banking, war, elitist constructs that are all around us are trying to dig in, and they are the caterpillar. The new emergent form is the new consciousness that many of us have already signed up for, many of us have already begun to exemplify, which is more of an internal awareness of our internal connection to one another, as opposed to just an external awareness through the reptilian brain, which we're all sick and tired of the reptilian people among us. We've had enough of the reptilian brains among us, the war and the death and the drones and the surveillance and the cops that are tasing old women in wheelchairs. I mean, at some point we're just going to be done with it, and I think we're right to that point where we've reached the boiling point where consciousness is agitated enough that we just happen to have this beautiful alignment in human consciousness on the horizon just a few days away. Put all your efforts to it, put all your focus on it, and let's not look back. Let's transform this world, whether anything happens or not. Let's make an agreement with ourselves as individuals that we're not going to go along with business as usual anymore, that there is no more business as usual, that as individuals and loving people of a creator who we all share this universal mind, our own drop of water, let's be aware that we're all part of an ocean, and that what we do to the other drops of water, we do to ourselves. And I think just taking that awareness away from this, whether anything happens or not, let's just operate on a different modality. Let's agree that we're no longer going to be sanctioned by this absurd authority that seeks to usurp our right to universal brotherhood and sisterhood. My own aunt, I love her to death, but she told me one day a few years ago, she said, "Matt, there will always be war on this planet." And I told her, I said, "In your mind, maybe." But it's, we have to dream large, people. We have to dream big, and we have to be that change we seek. If we're ever going to have a universal brotherhood and sisterhood on this planet, it's going to take work. And it's not just going to pop into existence and, oh, everybody's happy and we're great. Let's not go on that kind of mindset. Let's go as if, this is a point of time where we can all reset, where we can all benefit, and where we can take that knowledge and extrapolate what we need to develop the kind of civilization that we really want. And it would be nice, as when Gandhi was asked what he thought of Western civilization, he said it would be a good idea. Sounds like a good idea, basically meaning it hasn't happened yet, but let's make a civilization. Let's do it for once in our history. 6,000 years of written word history, we haven't had a civilization. It would be nice to have one. Let's embrace the power of the feminine, bring women into the fold of decision-making processes, because women are the missing element, in my opinion. They're the fifth element that we need to bring man's world into balance. We need to get rid of these male-only dominated, hierarchical, man-dominated structures that keep collapsing because of their imbalance, and embrace the feminine, which is what our planet is moving into. If she is truly ablating, then she's becoming more feminine. The mother goddesses of the ancient world and the clay figures were ablated women. They had big hips, big boobs, and round heads. They weren't skinny-looking, Barbie doll-looking figures that had no motherly attributes to them. I mean, an ablated world is a mother that gave birth. It's like Senora is a mother in Spanish. Senorita is a woman that's unmarried and has had no children. We live on a world that is a mother, so it's about time we pay attention to our mothers and bring them into the fold, embrace the feminine inside each one of us, and bring that to the fold. Because that's really what Leo said from her writings. God will work with you but not for you. Her book Love, her book, Why You Cannot Die. I mean, these are all stressing the importance of having the feminine principle in man's world, which is the balance of East and West. If East tried to be mother and father to the world, it would collapse. If West, which is science only, was trying to be mother and father to the world, it would collapse. We have to unite East and West, male and female, produce the balanced civilization that we all deeply seek in our spirits, that we all deeply seek in our own homes, and extend that balance to the world in and through each other, and we will, for the first time in our history of this world, of this humanity, we will truly have a civilization. And that's what I'm working for, and I hope we can do it together.
Already there.
Tune out, turn off, and drop out of the dominant paradigm.
Yeah, it's like changing channels on the radio, right? If you don't like the station that's got punk music on it, well, you just turn that dial a little bit, and voila, you've got Baroque.
Exactly. Make what we want.
Yeah, let's change the channel. We can do it. And like your aunt there said, Matt, you know, there's always going to be wars. Of course, these doctrines come from the war makers themselves. They teach. I remember when I was a kid, some old man who was supposedly wise said, "Oh, war is good for the economy. Oh, the economy grows with war." You know, oh God, man, it's like.
Fine, go get your head shot off then. You love it so much, you know, fool. Unbelievable.
That really did my head in. That really, I could not. Man, that was a severe case of cognitive dissonance for me. I mean, I just went, whoa, how can that be? I tried to, you know, forever, because he was wise, you see. I tried to fit that teaching into my heart and into my head, and it just didn't work, didn't gel.
I just have one.
But in Jesus' myth, you know, wars and rumors of wars till the end of time, you know.
Yeah. The one word I came across today on my rabbit trailing, you know, I'm surprised I never noticed it before, but you know, I've been talking a lot about the Wizard of Oz and you know, follow the yellow brick road, etc. And at the very end of it, you have to find your heart pledge. That's your, you know, get centered in the heart, right, where the mind is. And right. I looked at it in French. That is courage. So when you take a couple of letters out, you got yourself some courage. And the universe loves a courageous us being. So how about we just get a little bit of courage, dare to be the change we want to see, and you know, enough of the tornadoes. Stop buying into other people's tornadoes and taking pictures from their canvases and shoving them on yours like they're yours. Start creating your own. Just write your own songs. You'd be amazed. We're all creators.
Well said.
Absolutely. Indeed. And may I add, Walter also added that when you lose your fear, you no longer need courage. So when you live without fear, courage isn't needed. You're simply a balanced being, and the need for any sort of thing or another is negated because you have everything you need, and it unfolds from within. And when you have that power within, you know, you can't, just like the old saying, you can't give away that which you don't possess. So it's really about learning to possess the things within yourself and unfold those things out unto the world. Be the thing you wish to see. That way it exists within you so that it is possible to give it away.
And the ultimate form of fear is the fear of death. And you can't die, so there's nothing to fear.
Right. Here's a way to do it, the way I did it anyway, and I've been through a lot of scary situations. I literally scared my fear away by going into situations that taught me how to, okay, well, I'm here now. You know, I've done lots of pretty wild and crazy things, always finding that wall of resistance and pushing through it, because, you know, that was the fear. You can feel it. It's a physical manifestation. And all you have to do is step, you know, there's the yellow brick road. Just take your ruby slippers and through it. It's not easy, I will say that, but it's certainly not impossible. I've stepped through a lot of my own walls, and as a result, I've scared the fear out of myself.
Good for you.
Beautiful.
Yeah, way to go. You go.
I'll say, speaking of Why You Cannot Die, it's a beautiful book Leo wrote, but one of the things the Russells touched on a lot in their writings was the repetition in nature. And when you realize that everything comes back, that it basically extends from silence, divides itself into motion, and then refolds into silence and stillness, you'll realize that there really is no death, that this is a temporary universe, a temporal one, that is, it lives for a moment and then doesn't live, but in orderly fashion it unfolds and refolds. And those are terms that I think man would do well to remove from his vocabulary, are the words living and dying, and replace them, birth and death, and replace birth and death with unfolding and refolding. And that's going to be part of the new language we adopt into the future, because death seems so scary. It seems like such an end and such a concrete being over with, of life, that it scares the bejesus out of most people. And one of the things that the Creator had told Walter in his illumination was that, I command you to go forth and remove the fear of death from your fellow men. So he was well aware of, and it went straight into the face of Christian doctrine. In fact, a lot of Christian organizations wanted nothing to do with Russell and Leo and Walter because of their message of reincarnation. But there are actually many Unitarian churches, Lutheran groups, Baptist groups that ignored the parts of reincarnation to hear the other parts of the message. But it's interesting that the early books of the Bible did teach reincarnation, and that some of the early church doctrines did as well. And those things were removed, of course, over the century, over the millennia. But realizing that you cannot die is an extremely huge part of being able to operate in this world that we live in and being able to get things done. Because part of the reason, a lot of reasons people stay at certain jobs or don't take chances in their life is because their mortality, their fear of mortality is so strong. It's the same as the fear of being unemployed. It's a sort of small death compared to the large one. So we're scared to take the chances that might bring us closer to ourselves. We're scared to take those steps that might bring us deeper into the being of our own oneness with our cause and why we really truly unfolded. So I think by simply understanding that you cannot die. In fact, I recommend the book Why You Cannot Die by Leo Russell. It's out of print, hard to find, but if you go to Abe Books or Amazon, wherever, you might be able to find some copies. But it's a tremendous book, and it's definitely worthy of, if you have a fear of death, read that book, and it'll certainly help to put things into perspective and how things are all repetitious in this world.
Everything's cyclical, and that flies in the face of science as well, because science has reinforced this fear through this bullshit of the Big Bang. Everything exploded from one, so-called particle and created all this mess, and then it's all just going to basically burn out and die and return to cold. And so it reinforces this lie, because the entire universe is based on cyclical processes, not on a one-way heat, death, explosion, entropy model as we've been taught.
Hey guys, here's the great Ovid, 2,000 years ago, one of the greatest Roman poets, who wrote the Metamorphosis, which is what's going to happen hopefully in the next few days, our apotheosis, the divinization of mankind. But he wrote the Metamorphosis 2,000 years ago, and in the chapter there, in the which is the 15th book, dealing with the teachings of Pythagoras, he wrote this: I can look down on those wandering mortals, lacking in reason, anxious and fearful of dying, and from there exhort and encourage them by unrolling the scroll upon which fate is inscribed in succession. O people stunned with the icy terror of dying, why do you fear the Styx? The river Styx, that is. Why are you frightened of phantoms and names that mean nothing, an empty blather of poets, foolish hobgoblins of a world that never existed? Here is what happens after you die. Your body, whether consumed on the pyre or slowly decaying, suffers no evil, souls cannot perish, and always on leaving their prior abodes, they come to new ones, living on, dwelling again in receptive bodies. That's the great, great metamorphosis, folks.
Beautiful.
And Walter Russell on page 198 of The Secret of Light says, man can never die, for he is omnipresent light, and he exists everywhere. Likewise, man's body cannot die, for man's body manifests immortal man, and immortal man always has a body in which to manifest. This body, which extends from the earth, disappears into the heavens and the earth. But that which disappears to sensed man of earth has not ceased to be, for its pattern has been recorded for repetition. It still is and will reappear. Lose the fear, guys. Lose the fear, people, and then you will have no need for courage. It's like when you know, you have no longer any need for belief and hope. Oh, I believe in God. You don't need to. You just need to know God.
Exactly. What was it
no.
Carl Jung said when he was asked if he believed in God? He said, believe? No, I know. I know God.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there it is. I mean, Walter also said that, when man loses his fear of death, then all things become deliberate. You live with purpose at that point. You no longer live an accidental, I may not be able to do this tomorrow or that tomorrow, but life must be purposeful. The Creator purposely divides its one still magnetic light into the color spectrum of motion and sex. And this bisexed universe is the motions of the Creator's thinking. So it is as much with purpose as you lift your finger to scratch your nose is with purpose. Every little thing you do is purposeful, so make it good. Purposely do that which gives to others, which gives loving service, and do only that which makes you to be loved by others. And you can't go wrong in this world. You will be blessed by this universe because that's the way this universe works. When you take from someone, when you lie, when you cheat, bad things happen. And if you don't know why that is, then just keep doing it. You'll learn eventually. But you could save yourself a lot of time if you just start working with the universe and give so that giving can re-give perpetually. And we will uplift the human race. The more of us that do this, we bring balance to our homes. We can extend that balance to our neighborhoods, to our cities, to our states, to our countries, and eventually to the whole world till love girdles this earth. And as long as there's love in this world, there can be no hate. And I, for one, want to see that world before I leave this planet. And I'm going to do everything I can to make that so.
Beautiful.
Join us.
Music to my ears.
I'll give you a heart pledge on that one. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, time to point your noses and eyes heavenward. Take notice of those stars, guys, because they are seeds of life. They are seeds of immortality. They are portals back to our divine, pristine state of undivided, undifferentiated consciousness, unconditioned consciousness. And as the Pythagoreans called them, they are father fountains of life. And so let us not limit ourselves, people. We do call our children youngsters, young stars. We do give them gold and silver stars if they're good at school. And we tell them that they will have a bright future if they only will be good. And we do call our sisters Isis stars. And we do call our brothers Ra gods, because it's made up of the word Bra and Theos. So it's in our language. We cannot escape it. We just have to acknowledge it. And if we don't, we're a little bit like little Bart Simpson. You know, Bart Simpson, he goes to the door and he presses the doorbell and it squirts him in the face. He shakes his face, then he presses it again, and he gets squirted again. And then he shakes his face and wipes the water off, and then he presses it again. And he just doesn't get it. But that's Bart. That's not us. We get it. Look, we've got 7 minutes, guys. I'll leave it up to you, and you can just wind the clock down and see the hour out. Thanks once again for joining us. I'll say this now, just in case we get cut off, but thanks for joining us. The listeners demand, my listeners do anyway, that I have you guys as much as possible. I'm getting great feedback. They want it, they demand it, and they understand it and love it. And it is beautiful to deal in science and no hocus-pocus rubbish. It's just exquisite, and I thank you for that. And as the universe allows us in the near future, I will set aside extra shows just so that we can have these panels, Matt and Robert, because it's imperative, it's urgent, and our beautiful brother Walter, amongst many of the lights that we have, the shining lights and saviours that have come to this planet, in terms of saving our intellect from ignorance, we will not let them die in vain. And yes, they've been written out of history deliberately by certain creepy banking families, but, you know, they may repent, and hopefully we can embrace them in our family of love. And let us not let them die in vain. Let us let their words live on and emulate their examples. So over to you guys.
It's a great honor. It's a great honor to be with you, Santos, and to share with you everything we've learned. And our sole purpose is to help humanity, you know, out of the pit that we've been basically socially engineered into. And if I may just quickly read a quote from a true hero, Giordano Bruno, who lived without fear, who was burned at the stake by the Vatican, by the Pope. You know, he understood this stuff, you know, over 400 years ago. I might just read this very quickly. Thus the excellency of God is magnified and the grandeur of his empire made manifest. He is not glorified in one, but in numberless suns, not in one earth nor in one world, but in 10,000 hundred of infinite globes, so that this faculty of the intellect is not vain or arbitrary, that ever will or can add space to space, quantity to quantity, unity to unity, member to member. By this science, we are loosened from the chains of a most narrow dungeon and set at liberty to rove a most august empire. We are removed from the conceited boundaries and poverty to the innumerable riches of an infinite space, of so worthy a field and of such beautiful words. This science does not in a word make a horizontal circle feigned by the eye on earth and imagined by the fancy in the spacious sky.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Can you forward that on to me, please, if you don't mind? And Matt, if you know off by heart your poem that you read out and that I shared on Facebook, would you be able to please share that with us now?
Sure. One moment here. Let's see.
Because that was from our brother Giordano 400 years ago, and now we're going to have a modern Giordano Bruno, and you'll get a lot out of this poem.
Okay, here we go. There is only one. The one law of this universe is balance. The one matter substance is light. The one force is electricity. The one cause is desire. The one emotion, which has no opposite, is ecstasy. The one principle is love. The one thinker is the creator. The one thought is the creator's imagination. The one song is the music of the spheres, or the universal symphony. The one time is now. The one savior is you. The one is the other. Find the one in yourself. Know the one in the all.
Wow. Robert, just a minute for you. Sorry, we squeezed you.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Thanks again. Much love to your audience, to everyone. Let's make this a better world.
Yeah. Hallelujah. I'll second that. Thanks, Kate, for taking the board, and thanks, listeners. You deserve the quality of guests that I will promise to bring to this show, and hopefully make it a resource of great knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And with a minute left to go, perhaps each one of us, mine website is universaltruthschool.com, and my YouTube handle is Mr. Astrotheology. Robert, please, would you like to share yours, then Matt, and then Kate, and that should about do it.
Free Energy and Free Thinking is my website, FEANDFT.com, as it's abbreviated. 77 G-Slinger is my website, my YouTube channel, and 2010 Resistance site is also 77 G-Slinger.
Beautiful.
Excellent. And don't forget, Santo, you're on the air on American Freedom Radio in 1 hour from now. Don't forget that. And on Wednesday on Freedom Reigns Blog Talk here, I'm going to be a special show on the green language, as I understand it. So there you go.
Great. And Matt?
Yes, Matt Presti, MATTPRESTI.com, and Robert, and my joint website is thesecretoflight.com. We have all our videos there, all our interviews, sign-up sheet, newsletter, forum, and blog. We invite you all to join us.
Yeah, I'll have you back here as convenient as possible, as soon as possible. So, listeners, have a great shift. And enjoy the ride. It's only a ride. And I'd say we are out of time.
Oh, yeah, we're out of time. It's on the recording, though, guys, so we get lots of downloads, so all the information is there, and it will be grabbed, I promise. Yeah, thanks again, Santo, for letting me run the board and tossing my nickels worth in every so often. I love listening to you guys. And Rob and Matt, you guys, anytime you want to join me on Outside the Box, you're more than welcome. We also have Cosmic Blueprints with Tony. I co-host with him on Fridays as well. So, and other shows, I do other stations as well. So,
great.
Very
Thanks
cool.
for your input, Jake. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Good
Beautiful.
Guys.
Okay,
all
much
right,
love,
guys.
y'all.
Yep. Likewise.
All right, well,
talk soon.
If
Thanks, Kate.
we don't talk to you guys, have a wonderful transition over the equatorial plane of the Milky Way. We'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, I have my computer up and ready and pens ready for that moment.
Yeah,
I know.
keep your pen and paper handy. You might come back with diagrams and charts. Who knows? You know.
All over.
All right.
Much love to you guys. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Take care. Much love. Much blessings.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.